You go, Nick.
Are you ever going to get Carolina done or what?
52 wins, 30 losses. We don't count overtime losses on this podcast as they are worthless. Last year's power play ranking, they were second in the NHL with 26.9. Just goes to show what kind of well-coached team this team is. Who's in, who's out? Well, they brought in Jack Roslovich, William Carrier, Sean Walker, Shane Gostisbehere. Who did they lose? They lost Jake Gensel. They lost Noason, Brady Shea, and Brett Pesce. Couple of big names there on defense. 2 top 4 defensemen gone right there.
And a top line player.
And a top line player. The only thing is Jake Gensel wasn't there the whole year.
Yeah.
And they were still a very, very good team. So take that with a grain of salt, but it would have been nice if Jake Gensel had stayed. And the first person that would have benefited from that is the first person that we have on our tier list. So we have nobody on tier 1, which is 91 plus points. Mm-hmm. But we do have somebody on tier 2, which is 80 to 90 points. And that is Sebastian Aho, the best player on this team.
Dun, dun, dun.
I'll go first.
Go ahead, Junior.
I think that's a perfect fit. Last 80 to 90 points. Last year, in 78 games, he had 89 points, 36 goals, 53 assists. He's 3 consecutive years, 35 goals or more. 36, 36, and 37. Relatively healthy, 75-plus games played in the last 3 years. Shots on goal over 200. Shooting percentage consistent in the last 3 years at 16.5. So, like, as he's entering his prime, his numbers are staying consistent. So, for me, 80 to 90. Would I be surprised if he goes to 91? Yeah, no. But I just don't think there's enough offense around him to, like, give him that extra 4 to 5 points to get there.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. I could have seen him in the 91 plus, but I feel he lost too much around him. Teravainen, Gensel midseason, he lost him. So I feel
In the offseason, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like he's not as well surrounded offensively as he was last year. So that's why I feel he's going to not take a dip, because 89 points is 89 points. We still have him in that area. I feel it's going to be more in the lower 80s, so a point per game probably, like in the 82s that he's gonna get. But I would have put him 91 and plus, but I just feel he lost way too much offense around him.
I'll tell you what. I think that if Gensel would have stayed, I think I would have put him in the 91 plus.
Yeah. Agreed.
100%.
That's enough to give him that 4 or 5 extra points that he needs to get there.
He was on pace for 94 last year.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what did he lose? Yes, he lost Teravainen, who was a running mate of his. But I still think the young guys that are coming up, the Jarvises, the Svechnikov, which we'll talk about.
Nadeau might make
Necas is still there.
Nadeau might make his debut.
Nadeau might make his debut, I doubt, on the first line. But still, there's enough there for him to continue his current pacing, I'll say, which is the 80 to 90 points and closer to the 90 probably. Just to give you guys an idea, he's been a point per game player on average for his entire career, right? He's at 0.93 for his entire career, 1.02 points per game in his last 3 years, which is the 3 years that you really want to look at, right?
Yeah.
I don't see much change in Sebastian Aho. He's still a player that you're going to go grab as a point per game player at up floor, I think. He only had 1 year really where he didn't have that well, and that was the previous year. He still had 36 goals. I mean, hard to say anything bad about Sebastian Aho.
Yeah. No, he's the star of this team, so.
Second rounder, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember that draft.
The only legit center they have, if you don't count Necas as a center.
Well, Necas will play center with
he'll have no choice, or else down the middle, it's weak.
Yeah.
Next player, between the tier 3, which is 70 to 79 points. That's how our tiers work. So tier 1 is 91 plus, tier 2 is 80 to 90, tier 3 is 70 to 79 points. We have one player in this tier, and maybe 2 eventually, but number 1, Andrei Svechnikov. Guys, what do we think about this guy? Because we wait for the breakout every single year. When is Svechnikov going to be that 70 to 80 point player. Not 70, 80-point player. And he never seems to have actually developed into that.
When he can stay healthy. I think his biggest issue is staying healthy. Last year, 59 games, 52 points, so he could have been on pace for that, high
72.
72 points. But he needs to stay healthy. He's 24. He hasn't hit his prime yet. He's a big boy, 6'2". It's like we're not talking about forward who's 5'11", who it's easier for him to get injured. So I just feel he hasn't played 2021, 2022. He played 78 games. After that, it came to 64, and now 59. So I feel he could become a point per game player.
A little bit of a loose leaf paper?
I'm not there yet. I just feel coming into this league, his identity was goal scorer.
Yes. 30
to 40 goal scorer.
I mean, we expected him to reach 40.
Yeah, like
at one point, and he might still.
Yeah, 2021, 2022, he hit 30 goals, but after that, it's 23, 19, but he couldn't stay healthy. So I feel if his goal production goes up, which should go this year because there's not much competition around him. There's Seth Jarvis, but that's about it. So I feel if he stays healthy, he could push into the next tier. But I'm not convinced he can stay healthy for 82 games.
Look, there's always going to be that season he does stay healthy for 82 games, right? They don't just consistently stay injured, but they're usually more injured than not. He was Sebastian Aho's most consistent line mate last
when he was
year.
healthy.
Yeah, when he was healthy.
Yeah.
And so if he could stay healthy, he could push that point per game. I don't see why not. But the reality is, when you do projections, you can't just go on a limb and say, no, this is the year he's going to be healthy. You just can't do that.
You can't predict health.
You can't.
No.
And if history tells you he's going to get injured, then you have to project he'll get injured to a certain extent.
Staying healthy is a skill.
It's a
We've
skill.
spoken about availability is a skill.
Does he have the talent and the tools to be a point per game player? Absolutely. If he plays a full 82 games, I expect him to be a 82-point player. But I don't foresee that, so I agree. I like him where he is, and I wonder what happens with the power play.
It will not be second overall.
Second overall power play last year. Does that go down? How does that affect their...
Well, what did they lose from their power play?
Well, in the last quarter, they lost Gensel. Other than that, it should remain the same. Yeah.
Shea was there, but not. But they replaced him with Shane Gottsberg, who is a power play specialist.
So maybe tit for tat?
But I think some people overachieved. Like the next player we're talking about, I think he overachieved.
Okay, so let's move on to that next player then. Tier 4 is our next tier, which is 60 to 69 points. And Seth Jarvis is the first person that we have listed here. Now, Seth Jarvis is, Vince just said that his opinion, Seth Jarvis overachieved, but he's a highly touted prospect. He is supposed to be a very, very good player.
Yes, but a shooting percentage of 18.8, that's not sustainable. And he played 81 games last year, 67 points, 33 goals, 34 assists. So I see, unless he's going to take more shots than last year, but he's been at 187 shots, 176 shots last year. It's I think this is last year I feel it was his breakout year, but teams will adjust to his game play. So I don't think he'll get more. I think he's in the right tier, but I don't see him hitting 33 goals next year.
Junior?
I think we have him at the right spot. As he develops and gets experience, can he go to the next tier? Maybe. I honestly, I didn't think he'd be close to a 35 goal scorer when he was drafted or coming into the league. So seeing him at 33 goals is a bit surprising this early in his career, especially on a team that supposedly doesn't score much. I think like Vince said, he's in that range of look, is even if his shooting percentage dips to, let's say, 14%, does he lose maybe a couple of goals? But still, he went from 14 goals to 33. That's a massive jump. I do think he could be a 25 goal scorer, 25, 40, 65 points. I think that's what I project for him.
So, sorry, I was
no,
just
that's it. I'm done. That was it.
I was just gonna say, guys, what's the biggest difference in his production? Well, it's his ice time. He went from 13.52 in his rookie year to 16.12 in the following year to 18.45 and 62% of the power play for the first time in his career. He had 13 power play goals. He had 20 power play points in total. The majority of his increase is due to opportunity. Yes, his shooting percentage is a bit high, but the difference between that and his career average wouldn't necessarily affect him more than about 4 goals, 5 goals at max, let's say. So, and he's a young player that's still developing. So if he continues that trajectory, I think we're looking at 70 to 79 points next year.
I'll take Cole Caulfield as an example. The first year he came on the power play, he was lights out, scoring goals. What happened after? Teams adjusted, right? So it's going to be the same thing here, especially that who else is going to be on that power play that's going to be effective? So
I think it's going to depend on Svechnikov staying healthy and developing a significant role on that power play because, like you said with Caulfield, everybody knew it was going to Caulfield. Now Suzuki comes off the blue line, that's an option. Now with Slafkovsky there, it's an option. Matheson was creating an option.
Doc, yeah. But that's what I'm saying. It's like
they still had the second best power play.
Yeah, but I feel they also had the 4th best goals against. Do you guys see this team as the fourth best goals against
with the players they lost and Shea?
Yeah. We'll get to that with the goalies too later, but
I don't know about that.
Speaking just like one more team stat that goes, I think, underappreciated, not noticed because I mean we kind of already mentioned they don't score a lot, but they were 8th in the league at 3.38 goals per game.
Yeah,
8th in the league.
Do you remember
for a team that supposedly plays a defensive system? That's.
For such a long time, we've said that Carolina's Rob Brendamore system is so defensive that it's not worth having some of these players. But if you look at just the stats, they finished top 10 in the league in goals.
I wouldn't call the New York Islanders had a defensive system. I would call the Carolina system a well-structured system where players bought into what the coach is selling. But now the problem is they lost key players on defense, and
they were about to lose another one. So
Yeah.
I'm going to segue this into the next player because we will talk about defense a little bit later.
Yeah, go ahead.
Martin Necas, he was on the trade block. He was very out there. Everybody knew that he was available. They just didn't get the offer that they were looking for, and so they ended up signing him to a contract. So. Junior, what do you think about Necas this year? Is he going to be one of those pouting faces, doesn't want to be there anymore, or are we looking at somebody that's going to go out there and prove that he belongs?
No, I think they have no choice to give him an opportunity. Not that they haven't given him one, but I'm saying they don't just sign him to 2 years and then say, too bad you didn't want to be here or whatever. Like, they need Necas to be a playoff team. If he doesn't perform
after losing Gensel
and as potentially your number 2 center, they need him. They have to give him the tools and the opportunity to succeed. Then it's up to him, of course. So look, I think he's easily a 25 goal scorer, similar to Jarvis. I think they're very similar in the stats, projecting like between 60 and 70 points. That's where they live. I think Necas could maybe score a bit more goals than Jarvis, but again, I see him between the 60 like 65 point pace is what I like for him, pushing 70. But like I want to see him with a legitimate role at number 2 center and see what.
Do you think he's going to play number 2 center?
I don't. Who else will?
Well, they spoke highly of Jack Drury. coming in this year. They've signed Kotkaniemi like a second line center, but he's been in the doghouse.
I think
I
think
think that's-
Rosalovic has a better chance of getting second line centerman than KK.
But Roslovic hasn't been a good center
No,
in the NHL.
guys, this team worries me.
Their bottom, like Jordan Stahl is a solid player, but at his age right now, you're not expecting him to be a top 6. So there's clearly a little bit of top heavy going on because you could say 4 players right away are on the power play: Necas, Jarvis, Aho, Svechnikov.
But you see, Nick, sorry, that's the difference for Necas. And that's why I think Necas could hit the 70 to 79 points. It's because he's going to get power play 1.
So will Jarvis.
Yes, I know, but
Jarvis already had, though, I think, last
Jarvis
year.
always
That's
had-
why he got his 30-something goals.
But Necas didn't.
'Cause
Necas was on power play 2 last year.
Oh, okay.
Because it was Gensel. So I feel that's where Necas is going to get his Netches, or whatever the way we say his name, is where he's going to get his points. But this Carolina team worries me a lot.
There's a lot of change. A lot of change for a team that's well structured. It's a lot of change.
Like,
There's a lot of new faces. It's hard stuff.
I'm not going to lie. Once we do the standings, for me, they're out of the playoffs. They're the Eastern team that comes out of the playoffs.
Wow, that's huge. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
That's a massive statement.
That's a little bit of
Because I'm also not convinced with their goalies.
well, okay. Let's not jump all the way.
No,
Let's
but
not
I'm just saying, once we
This guy
get there,
jumped to
Nick is
defense first.
freaking
Now
out.
he's trying to
He's
jump
freaking
to.
out, ladies and
There's
gentlemen.
structure in this podcast.
Nick,
No, we talk of Carolina.
It's the perfect segue. Goalkeepers. What's the next thing we have to talk about? Goalkeepers.
No, we're not finished with Necas yet.
Guys, I just want to add one thing about Necas, if I may, or Natchez.
Yeah. I haven't even provided my take yet.
Like his most consistent line mate has been like last year was like Kuznetsov or Jack Jury. You know, look, I like those guys and all, but like he's not playing with an Aho or a Svechnikov, or you know what I'm saying. So even just playing with Jarvis could help. So
Okay.
I look forward to see how they're going to deploy him, because that's going to determine how well he'll do as well.
To Vince's point, Necas only had 44% of the power play time last year. That's a drop from the 60% that he had the year before,
Where he had 71 points.
where he had 71 points. So we know Necas is an offense-first player. We know he doesn't fit that well in the structure that Rob Brindamore has, which is the reason they were looking for a trade partner. But fact remains, they need him, and they need him badly. This player had a point pace of only 0.69 last year, which is a 56-point pace. Not very high. The year before that, though, he had the 71-point pace. Actually, he had 71 points because he played all 82 games. And he had power play 1 time. That's where I see that he might return. He might hit that power play 1 time again, and because he hits that, it's going to propel him to the tier 3 as opposed to tier 4 that we currently have him at. Very talented player.
Agreed.
Very talented player. And unfortunately, they were asking too much for some teams to go out and get him. But with right? I mean, it makes sense why
It
they were
seemed like
asking.
they wanted like a star for a star, but
Yeah. Well,
what do they consider a star? I mean, I don't know if Natchez did enough to say he's a star. He's got
He's only-
potential for sure.
yeah, only 171-point pace, right? Or 71 points in his career. All right. We'll talk about...
Bruno?
We don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk about Bruno. Yeah, we're a bunch of
Nick,
fathers here.
How about you talk about the power play D-man?
Yeah, I was thinking
Yeah.
of just
We'll go-
transitioning straight into
We'll
there.
go power play D-man, then we'll go into their goalies.
So, the power play runs through.
Yeah.
I'm not sure anymore because you know what? Last year, Shea had a lot of the power play time, even though
Yeah.
Burns was there. I think Burns is their power play 1 usually,
To start the season,
but
he will
he
be there.
kind of took a step back last year, and that was the year that I traded him away with retention because of the fact that I knew that he was not going to be the Burns of old. Now, Burns is a physical specimen. This guy, if you've seen, and I'm not talking about his beard. Burns kind of took a step back last year. I think that Burns is going to continue that step back, but not dramatically. Just not the power play one demon that we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
And Gostisbehere, if he's good at anything, it's power play.
He's a specialist in that.
That's all he does.
Yeah.
29 points on the power play with the Detroit Red Wings last year. Put him on the second best power play team.
And Detroit
Detroit
didn't have
was top 10 as well, I think, in the power play. They are one of the
and
better
part of
power-
that was Gostisbehere, though. I mean, we can't
If
say
I
it
had
wasn't.
to decide today who's going to be the number one power play guy, I think they're going to give it to Gostisbehere.
So last year, Burns was power play 155% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he finished with 20 power play points, 4 power play goals, but only 43 points in 82 games. One thing that's amazing about Burns, though, is that he's consistently 82 game player.
Mm-hmm.
But his
Unbelievable.
age is catching up to him. He can't play the minutes that he was playing.
He played 21 minutes last year, 23 the year before that, 26 the year before that,
And the year before that.
and the year before
And
that.
the problem is that if his minutes go down,
his point pace will probably
but who
diminish.
was there to replace those minutes? They lost both
Yeah.
defensemen.
They
that were
replaced
there.
them with Sean Walker and
But
Gostisbehere.
Look, Orlov last year played number 5 defensive minutes. Orlov is better than a number 5 defenseman.
You're gonna see him move up.
You're going to
That's for
see
sure.
him move up with
Yeah.
Sean Walker taking some of those Shea minutes as well.
Yeah.
But I think the Burns minutes,
It still hurts, though. It's still there. That offseason still hurts a bit.
the Burns minutes, what they'll do is maybe they'll play him more as a 5-on-5 structured defenseman and give Gostisbehere the power play.
Look, eventually
Because
in the cap,
Gostisbehere is not that structured defensive player.
correct. In the cap era, you can't maintain your team forever.
No.
And Carolina kind of knew that it was coming.
Well, they tried. They thought they had Gensel, right? And then last minute he took a right turn and went
Yeah.
to Tampa Bay
Well,
instead.
it explains the contract they give to Orlov. Now it makes more sense to give him that kind of money because you knew you were losing both Shea and.
I think this team is in trouble.
Well, look, the fans of
PK
Carolina aren't as worried as you are. The fans of Carolina still have them ranked as in confidence meter, according to Dom's recent poll that he sends out to all fans. And it's good because it gives you a gauge. Okay?
Yeah, of course.
Basically, they're still top 8. They're 8th place from last year in confidence that the fans have of their team. And the year before that, they were 8th as well. So they haven't changed at all. Even their stats between public and fan base aren't that different. So there's still confidence there in the market.
Yeah, they could be confident, but you also have to be realistic.
Look, it doesn't help that they're in a very competitive division, eh?
No, you have to be realistic. All right, let's move on to the goalie tandems.
Watch me be realistic, my friend.
We have Kochekov, save percentage 911, goals against average 2.33, and a goal save above expected at 48 in the league. Following him, somebody that came back from injury, only played 16 games, was Frederick Anderson.
We'll get injured. again this year.
932 save percentage, 1.40. I mean, when he came back, he was on fire, guys. 1.84 save goals
Ridiculous.
against average. But he only played 16 games, so we can't really take that with too much grain of salt. Don't take it with too much of a grain of salt, or I don't know how. I'm ruining that whole thing. But those are the two goalies. Junior, what do you think about the goalies?
Guys, if Anderson could just stay healthy, like in the last 3 years, 16 games played, like you said, 184 goals against average, 932 save percentage. The year before that, 2.48 goals against average, 903 save percentage. The year before, 217, 922. Like, those are legit numbers with the Carolina Hurricanes. So he's definitely the number one, I think, before Kochetkov. I think Anderson gets first dibs, even though I do think it'll be a 50-50 split. But
So you're saying 1A, 1B.
yeah, at least for next season, at least for one more season. And Kochetkov just has to show that he can be consistent because even him, he's like a bit like Binnington. He can go off the rails a bit. But statistically speaking, his numbers aren't that great, but they're not bad either for Kochetkov.
I think their defensemen made the goalies look better than they were. And once again, they've lost on their defensive system. Oh, but yeah, listen, I think
Oh, are we counting these
it's
listens?
the first one. I let it go. I even told myself, don't do it. Goals for 277, goals against 211. In their goal differential, they were second in the league. I don't see that happening. I think they've lost something defensively, which means they're gonna. And the thing with the Brendan Moore structured system he plays, when they don't have the lead, the system doesn't work. So it's gonna be, I feel personally, it's gonna be a very tough season for the Carolina Hurricanes.
I'm curious to see how it goes. I think there's still, I mean, if he's as good as he is as a coach and has such a great structure, then especially that they're a very analytical organization, like they're big time on advanced stats, I would assume the guys they went to get fit the structure they want to play and that would excel in a given situation. But again, I got to see it before I can say for sure it's going to be good. Sean Walker was not necessarily a bad addition.
As a number 4.
Look, he was a plus player on the Philadelphia Flyers as a number 4. He played some decent minutes in 1936.
Okay, let's move on. I have nothing really to say about the goalie tandem. I think that if Anderson stays healthy, it's a big boost for Carolina, and hopefully his injury woes are behind him. But I do see a little bit of a split to make sure Anderson stays fresh for the playoffs. They are a playoff team by far, so like we're talking about one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference by far. They're still one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. And they're so well done that, you know, that when they lose like the Walker contract and maybe lose a couple of guys on defense, well, they have a couple of prospects that are coming in that are absolutely phenomenal. We have the KHL star in Nikishin.
Who will come
next year.
No, I think he'll come this year, but towards the end of the season. Once
the KHL finishes?
Once the KHL's finished, I think they're going to bring him in right away.
Maybe. But for sure next season, because his contract is up and he has expressed, I think, that he wants to come to the NHL. Sure. So Nikishin is going to be a big one. They have Morrow as well, who is an offensive player, kind of in the mold of a Gostisbehere, maybe. We'll see. We'll see if he turns into that or maybe could play more two-way game. Bradley Nadeau is...
Who will get a chance this year.
He will get a chance this year. Even Blake, I'm thinking that he might have a chance or a cup of coffee this year. We'll see. And the list goes on. Carolina has such a good prospect system. Tamanov, Poirier, Franzen. We could keep naming names here, but I think that's what's going to save them.
In the future, yes.
Because they lost Pesce, they lost Shea. They replaced him with a couple of guys that could hold the fort for a little bit. But Nikishin is really going to make that difference. Morrow is probably going to make that difference.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying Carolina will... This is the downfall for Carolina. It's not going to be the downfall. I think this is the off year for Carolina. New Jersey last year, everybody was saying is going to take that next step. And it was an off year for them. Carolina, I feel this is the year where it's going to be an off year for them just because they did not replace the players they lost.
But to New Jersey's defense, which we'll get to later, they had a obvious hole that that the GM never fixed, and it was their downfall.
Yeah, but now
they don't have that hole. Their hole is on defense, so they have a goalie to bail them out. But
we're saying their hole is on defense. They still have Slavin. They still have Burns. They still have Orlov. Like we're still talking about a team that has a very good defense, even though they lost Pesce.
Because their defense was so elite.
It was deep.
It was so deep, so deep.
They each knew the role. I feel the Pesce role and the Sage role is. And the thing is, New Jersey had, when we speak about New Jersey, we're going to see that they filled that hole, but that's the problem. I don't think Carolina filled the hole they have in defense.
All right.
So,
well,
Can I just add on one of the prospects on
It's gonna be-
Nikishin?
Oh yeah, go ahead, please.
So just to really emphasize on how good this kid could be, the KHL doesn't play young players, especially not 18-year-olds or 19-year-olds. Spartak Moscow at 19 played him for 46 games. 2022-2023 played 65 games, 55 points. That is absolutely ridiculous.
That's in the men's league.
In the men's KHL league with SKA St. Petersburg. Last year, 67 games, 56 points. So back-to-back 50-plus point seasons in the KHL with men.
At
And
age
plus,
what? 21?
now he's 22, so it was age 21. Plus 32 and a plus 19 the year before.
Well,
He's
the plus
trusted, man. He's trusted. I'm telling
Yeah,
you.
the plus is that's a very good team as well. But you're right. They don't usually play the rookies because at the end of the day, they have veterans in the NHL and the KHL that they want to appease, and they don't want guys that are going to leave. But this guy's
And
talent.
usually with like 1 or 2 contract years left without an extension, they unless they have an extension, they don't like to play them. Look at Demidov
Yeah.
example. He's younger now than Nikishin, but he's like the 13 forward heading into training camp here.
I've tried. I think 3. You're gonna laugh. 2 years ago, 2 full seasons ago, I went out on a limb and I grabbed Nikishin because I heard good things about him in every league that I possibly could, and I've held on to him on my bench, in my minors, or on my whatever, IR plus, whatever you want to call it, and. You know, I'm hoping that it's going to pay off next
You
year.
guys were
Okay,
discussing.
final thoughts and predictions.
Predictions for Carolina?
Yes.
Or predictions for the players?
No, I mean, what are your final thoughts on Carolina as a
think,
whole?
I think Carolina had a terrible offseason, and I think it will show this year in the season.
I think they're just too well structured. The way they do things, just they get the right people to fill the right holes. Do I think they take us a little bit of a step back? Yeah, I don't think they're the best team in the division, but I still think they're a playoff team.
I agree more with Junior in that sense. Yes, they did lose. And Dom agrees with that. 28th overall in off-season moves, according to his model. And you know what? Gensel hole not filled is the right thing to write there because Nick Cash on that second line is like the lone person that could actually hit 70 points. And they don't seem to, like Bradley Nadeau. I love Bradley Nadeau as a prospect. He hasn't done it enough in the NHL to say this year is going to be the year that he hits 70 points.
No.
Right? I mean,
I feel their forward line, they're going to have to move around. They won't be able to do the Jarvis, Aho, Svechnikov, and then leave Nekash on an island on line 2.
I don't think
you
they
need
could.
duos there.
Yeah,
you need
I think-
duos.
I
I don't
think
think
they're
they
gonna
could
go
go
more for duos.
another season with 50 games of Zveshnikov.
No.
He
That's
has to
a
stay
big.
healthy.
Yeah, he has to stay.
That's going to play a big role.